Hi guys. Today we're gonna present to you a presentation about Think You're Stealthy, how to detect attacks in AD, and I have two of my friends with me. I'm Rachit, currently a student at University of Maryland, and I'll let these two introduce themselves, and we'll move on to the presentation.
Hello all, my name is Sathvik. I'm currently a graduate student at Carnegie Mellon University.
Hello all, my name is Aakash Raman. I'm a University of Maryland alumni and associate detection engineer at a large financial firm in the DMV area.
So yeah, before we start a presentation, I just want to let you know how you can think like a detection engineer. And so if there's like any malicious activity, and you have to understand it, how it works from the ground up, and instead of like take a more naive approach, just try to understand what the binary or the threat actor is doing from the ground up and start doing the things. Could be a technique, if it's like a lateral movement or credential dumping. What are the tools involved? Is it like Bloodhound, Mimikatz? What are the APIs being loaded by the binary? Any system artifacts or network indicators, you have to try to figure out, which is a normal activity and what seems to be kind of malicious, and then move on forward with your detection engineering. So Bloodhound, by what I mean by detection of Bloodhound is just, it maps the hidden relationships in AD, and everything is actually done by Sharphound, which creates all the zip files, and you can pass that into Bloodhound. It's going to give you a cool map, and it's only as powerful as the data it receives. So without the data, Bloodhound is nothing. There's nothing to analyze. And this is what it looks like. If you run Sharphound, you'll have all these cool graphs, and you can look at this, and a red teamer can see what are the privilege escalation paths, and even blue teamers can use this to find gaps in the infrastructure. And a bit about Sharphound. This is the core. So whenever Sharphound is run, it's going to gather all the information from the domain controller using LDAP and DNS, and all the domain joined endpoints via RPC over SMB. And all these data is packed into a zip file, and you can put that into Bloodhound and visualize it. So yeah, whenever Sharphound is loaded, it's going to load net API 32.dll. Again, there are like different variations of Sharphound, but the ones which are run from on disk, it's going to load this DLL, and it's going to call another DLL, which is srvcli.dll, and finally it's going to call net session enum. And net session enum is responsible for some enumeration in the AD network. But I just want to point out a cool thing is Bloodhound.py. It's like another variation of Sharphound, and it doesn't load these DLLs. It directly like throws away some network calls, and it's going to do that using net r session enum. So it kind of bypasses, even if there's like EDR in place, it's going to bypass those common detections. And this was very interesting when I learned about this. And these are some like quick wins for Bloodhound. I'll take it any day. It covers like 80% of the detection, and the rest 20% is where you have to go and try to reverse engineer what's actually taking place. And in the left image, you can see some bloodhound.zip and all the zip file names .json, and everything is there. And on the right hand, there's collection method all, which is very specific to the default version of Sharphound. So yeah, I mean, this is probably the easiest way you can detect Bloodhound and Sharphound, but I'd rather do some reverse engineering, figure out the rest 20%. And coming back to bloodhound.py, this is another interesting. So on the left image, you can see whenever you run Sharphound and any like on disk version, it's gonna throw net sesh enum call, and you can see on the left side highlighted version. But if you're using bloodhound.py, it's going to use the encrypted SMB3 version, and we cannot see that in Wireshark. So it's gonna, again, bypass all these network detections, but you can you have to figure out how to analyze this and how you can detect this. Now I'm gonna pass it to Aakash, who's gonna take it further.
So another popular tool that's normally used in many AD environments for lateral movement specifically is psexec. So it's mainly a sysinternals utility tool to run remote Windows commands that administrators use if they want to remotely access a system. So when psexec is used laterally, MITRE creates a MITRE attack ID of S0029. So it's also used by many of the C2 frameworks out there, like Cobalt Strike, as well as many of the offensive security tools like Metasploit and Impacket. Also, psexec, when working under the hood, it's important to understand the main process that it runs, the main services that it's creating, and the binaries that it drops. So in a nutshell, psexec uses SMB. You will authenticate using SMB with credentials. It creates a psexe svc.exe file, which specifically targets the admin $share under system32. And it uses named pipes to kind of execute the command that you want on the remote machine. And once the command's executed, both the service and the binary that it created creates a random binary. Both are like deleted. So the first time when you run psexec, you have to accept the end user license agreement. That's what's shown in the flag accept EULA. You also give a host name for the machine you're trying to remotely access, and then the command that you want to run. Normally in lateral movement, specifically when psexec is used, the TAC-R flag is used for creating a custom service. The default service is psexe svc.exe, and the TAC-I is for interactive mode. So this is just a simple meme trying to show that when psexec drops a binary for lateral movement, it's not a good sign. So now, one of the most interesting artifacts I came across when trying to detect psexec, specifically from a response point of view, is that for psexec versions 2.30 and above, that's like the current version of psexec, there are two detection artifacts that are very unique, which can be found in the USN journal and the prefetch files. So USN journal, you can think of it, it's known as the update sequence number journal or change log. So any type of file modifications that take place, configuration management that takes place on your NTFS drive volume, it will be mapped in USN journal, and the default location is it's in the $extend/ $USN journal share in a Windows machine. So Eric Zimmerman, really a great guy, has developed a command called mftecmd.exe, which actually parses the master file table. You can think of it like an address book, extracts the USN journal, and then outputs that output in a CSV format. So the unique thing in this case is when psexec is run from the attacker's machine to the victim machine, it generates a .key file that's really unique because you have the psexec, that's the service, hyphen the source host name of your attacking machine, and an 8 unique characters that's also present, .key file. And the location of that is in your C Windows directory. So this way, I had used mftecmd.exe to extract the output. So in this image, you can see that along with logs, we managed to correlate the timestamp when psexec was run. It generates an event ID of 7045, which is like service creation. The timestamp that was logged here, and on the right, there's another tool called Timeline Explorer by Eric Zimmerman. The timestamps actually matched, which proves the fact that psexec was detected or can be detected using just the USN journal alone, rather than relying on just the logs. So similar case goes for handling prefetch files as well. So Prefetch files are nothing but .pf files that are created whenever applications that are recently run, you want to load them very fast. So Windows kind of helps you load the applications quickly from memory to disk using these prefetch files, and they are common in Windows forensics. Their default location is C Windows prefetch, and when psexec was run, you can see that a .pf file was created with this unique number. So we can use pecmd.exe, which is also a great Eric Zimmerman tool to parse prefetch files. And when you run the above command here with the tacf argument, and you just find any .key file that actually matches the results when we parse the prefetch files from USN journal. This is like a common detection that's out there. I just wanted to throw this in to also show that log analysis is equally important. And most of the event IDs with respect to psexec are both in the system log and the security log. You can also leverage sysmon, specifically file creation event ID 11, registry value setting event ID 13, and process execution event ID of 1. Now I'll just pass it on to Sathvik.
So one of the covert way to actually laterally move within an Active Directory network is through WinRM protocol. So WinRM is like a Windows version of SSH. Like it allows you to remotely manage Windows machine using PowerShell. So Evil WinRM is one such tool which actually helps you do that. And the cool part is it even allows you to perform pass the hash attack. So first of all, it can authenticate using a plain credentials or NTLM hash or keys as well. And the WinRM actually runs on 2 ports, which is 5985 and 5986, one for HTTP and one for HTTPS. And once actually logged in, it gives you a valid, a very good PowerShell session, and where you can run the commands. And it is very simple to upload and do a lot of crazy things. And in many companies, it's like a very good policy to have a strong password and all, but pass the hash attack is one way. Even though your password is pretty strong, you can just pass the NTLM hash and you can still gain the access. And pass the hash attack can be performed even using psexec and all, but as you know, psexec tries to upload some kind of a binary, but Evil WinRM doesn't. It just uses an already existing service to get in. So the exploitation, like how it actually works is like once you identify the valid port, which is 5985 or 5986, then you can actually log in using valid credentials or also the NTLM hash using a normal option like this. And there is also an option to log in through certificates. This only works on port 5986 because this is HTTPS, right? So, and upload and download and something like that. So this is like a sample screenshots of how it actually works. I mean, of the results and all. And this, when you have a valid credential, and this if you just have the hash. So how it actually works. So first, Evil WinRM tries to connect to the WinRM protocol, and WinRM protocol uses SOAP. SOAP request for, it's like a request and responses to the WSMan endpoint, and after successful authentication, it starts WSM PROV host, which actually is a Windows PowerShell host process used for managing the remote connections and executing PowerShell commands. And command execution, and then once a session is actually created, it uses PSRP, is like PowerShell remoting protocol, just to send and receive the commands and receive the output. And mechanism, as we are discussing, as WinRM works on SOAP, so SOAP actually uses XML payloads to request to get requests as well as the responses. And it is very stealthy because it is not creating any kind of new service, not opening new ports, not uploading any binaries, so it is very covert. And this is a sample SOAP request of what happens when you actually try to run ipconfig command on a valid Evil WinRM session. So you can see a command line here, it is trying to load PowerShell, and you can see the endpoint as 5985 and /WSMan. So these are some cool artifacts. Since this is like a remote login, you should always keep an eye on 4624 or 464. This is very vague because there are like so many logons happening on Windows machine. And there are some other event IDs like 4103 and 4104. So these are not enabled by default, but 4103 is for like module logging. Like for example, if you run a PowerShell script, it tries to log all the variables that are initialized and some kind of PowerShell commandlets. And whereas 4104 event ID logs everything, the whole part of the script. So make sure you enable them. And also the process evidence, when you see the WSM PROV host running, then you should also be more aware of what things happen. And since we are running everything on PowerShell, it's always a good way to see PowerShell history at this particular location. And also network logs, since every traffic is going to the network on port 5985 and 5986, having an eye on the network logs will also help. So this is a sample 4103 event ID where it is trying to load WSMPR OV host as an embedding process and trying to run a time command. And this is a simple Sigma rule. Here, I'll try to give a quick overview here. So it is actually loading a PS module of event ID 4103, and it is either checking for a PowerShell or a PowerShell operational or PowerShell core operational, and it is looking for a process, either, it's the same process, but it could be in either of those locations, as well as there are 3 selection payloads. It is trying to look for some kind of PowerShell commandlets and some kind of registry changes that are being made. You can see it's a service registry, so if it's trying to see any service like related to WSMPR who host is running or not. And coming to the condition, it is specifically checking for any one of the PS module. It could be this one or that. And the process is the key point here. Without this process, this attack, we can't actually prove that this attack actually worked or something like that. And also any one of the selection payload. So that is actually what's going on here. And also certificate authentication if you're actually using WinRM on HTTPS like 5986. By default, certificate authentication is on. So try to disable that if you still want to use it. And some other ways, some other key points are like WinRM actually uses NTLM or Kerberos authentication. You can't actually disable any kind of on the settings, and also it's like it depends completely on that. And if you actually don't want to use WinRM, just stop it off. Don't use it. And coming to the key takeaways, like there is no one single rule to catch everything. Attackers keep updating, and the binaries, they might use some extra binaries which are undetectable and try to get in. And also look beyond the logs as well, like PSExec. It could be easily bypassed. Like if an attacker actually knows the kind of rules that you already implemented, they could actually go and try to bypass that. So one of the attack was, so there was actually a rule for evil WinRM. So evil WinRM, when you try to connect, it uses a specific user agent. But that's the only log that the company is actually using. So, and it is very easy to change the user agent because this evil WinRM is open source, and you can actually bypass that. And also look for processes that if you don't need them, just try to disable them. And know if you're not using any ports which are not required, just try to disable them. And these are some of the references that we used. And thank you so much for attending our talk. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.